Congratulations, you're finally bombing drives, but you're missing greens from 100 yards and in. This is the quickest way to lower your scores, and if you stick with me in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to stick those wedges and nip them close. So for most of my players, I teach two main shots when it comes to 50 to 100 yards, the high spinner and the low spinner. And how to identify those and when to use them is crucial out on the golf course. So for instance, we're going to talk about the low spinner first. In this particular situation, we've got a downhill shot to this green. The pin is farther back so that we've got plenty of room for the ball to roll out on it. So anytime that we do a lower spin shot, that ball is not going to have as much check. It will check, but just not as much, and it'll roll right towards the hole. Now, a lot of people will say, I don't care about spin or stopping power. That's too much for me. And I'm going to say, everybody needs a little bit of spin. Everybody does around these areas. It's too hard to predict knuckleballs. It just is. It's too hard to predict no matter how hard you try. We just found it more or easier to be consistent on everyone's game when we added just a little bit of spin. And specifically, I'm talking to the 10 to 15 handicap group. You right there. You're consistent enough to start making those kind of changes and really start elevating your game and dropping sub 80 most of the time. So here's how we're going to do. We're going to talk about this lower spinner type of shot. So anytime you want it lower, right? We want a lower lofted club. I prefer a 54 degree. We're not talking about 60 degree wedges here, all right? 60 degree does not automatically mean spin. Okay, there's a lot of different shots to use that club for. We can use different clubs. I use my 54 degree. All right, so we're getting lined up for these type of shots. You're going to want to kind of club up to what do you normally do from that distance. So let's say this is, 55 yards or so right here. I know I'm well within that range with this club with a half swing. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have the ball slightly farther back in my stance with a slightly open club face and a slightly open stance. Okay, now I get this question all the time. How far back do I put in my stance? How far forward do I put in my stance? This is something you can play with, play around. Everybody is completely different in this area. I can tell you firsthand from my own experience and from my students, okay? So for instance, if you had a couple positions here, you broke it up into four sections in your stance, and the first section was way back here toward your right foot, and that didn't feel comfortable to you, and you wanted to go just a little bit farther, that felt great, and you're actually getting more stopping power with it, then that's your position. That's all we're going to do. You're going to find that position that allows you to be predictable with your shots. And then if you want to go a little higher or a little lower, do something different, we just change our clubs in order to adjust. Okay? So we're sitting here. We're about 55 yards out. I've got my open club face. I've got my open stance. Okay. Here's a crucial part of this. We're doing low shots. We're not doing high shots. The more hinge you have in your wrists, the higher that ball is going to go. The more we keep our wrists with less break in them, the shallower and the lower that ball is going to go. I truly prefer that ball flight. I prefer it for myself, for all my students. It's very easy to control. Shallower swings mean not as big of a swing, and less stuff's going to happen. It's as simple as that. Okay? So, we have a slightly open club face. We have a slightly open stance. We're not going to have a whole bunch of wrist hinge this way. We're going to set up to it and feel like we're going to swing down our feet line just a little bit, okay? But you notice I don't have a big swing at all. I'm going to keep that ball flight nice and low, give myself plenty of green to work with, and stick it right next to the pin. Just like that. All right, so we just identified when to hit a low shot. Now we're going to identify when to hit a high shot. So this is a perfect example right here. We're on the 15th hole here at Old Hawthorne. It's a par 5. Some people go for it in 2. Some people lay up. So if we're laying up right here, we've got all this kind of water hazard to get over. We don't have a lot of green to work with, right? So a little bit of green, let's say only a couple feet on, and then we have our pin. So we need to get that ball high up in the air quickly to cover this hazard, and we need to stop quickly. There's stuff behind it. We don't want a long putt. This is exactly when you would take your 60-degree wedge or a 58, something like that. Use it in this situation. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we were just doing low shots. When we were doing low shots, we were determining what part of our stance back here for the ball position worked best for us for continuity, for it to be consistent. It's the same thing for these higher shots. Now, these are actually even more important. I really don't like big swing wedge shots, and a lot of instructors don't. The reason for that, we tend to slide underneath that golf ball with these higher lofted wedges, and we end up doing kind of more like a flop shot, goes straight up, straight back down, ends up in one of these hazards. So you got to be a little careful with that. You want to have enough loft to get over your hazard, but not so much that it goes straight up. Okay, so again, when you're on the course, play around with this. Play around with your ball position. My ball position for this would be slightly forward of center with a slightly open club face. That's my perfect position right there. I'm not having a big swing again because I'm still pretty close to the pin. I'm 60 yards away. But my club face is slightly open. My stance is slightly open. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before in terms of getting spin. I changed my ball flight because I changed my ball position, okay? And I also changed my club. All right, so I've got the shot right here. I'm still gonna set up to it with an open stance and open club face as I mentioned, but it's gonna be a little fuller of a swing. I'm actually gonna get a little more wrist hinge on this one because I want that ball to go higher. And as I mentioned earlier, when you don't have a lot of wrist hinge, that's a lower trajectory type of shot. But I don't want that on this shot, I want a higher one. So I'm gonna get a little more wrist hinge to add a little more loft, get a little more spin, and we'll see how close we can get it. All right, so we just knocked out the low spinner. We just knocked out the high spinner. If those work for you, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.